Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Then in an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn and Eckert, the President and Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. A Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain. Amen.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome.
Welcome.
We are here for another installment of Herein Lies the Peace of God. I am Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert. This is my co-host, your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway.
I appreciate that.
And we have been studying A Course in Miracles. And the first thing we did, of course, when we started was we began studying the clarification of terms. And
right.
We moved from the clarification of terms to a manual. A long day already. It's a manual for something. Let's see.
I know.
Yes, manual for teachers. And we are recording this episode. So we miss seeing you in person. But we're glad you are here to share this with us via recording.
Uh-huh.
And we are, as I say, in the manual for teachers, we are on the section where we're getting ready to start the section called Joy.
Boy.
Yeah, and I don't have a page number for you. I'm in my Kindle version. So, yeah. So, shall I just go ahead and read, or did you? No. Talk first.
Tell me about your week. Tell me about how you. No, see, I know we're pre-recording this, so we're going to do a little sleight of hand here. What is your kind of general take? Like, how do you encounter or do joy? When someone says joy to you, do you think detergent? Or what do you? Or do you think? Or do you have a girlfriend? Like your girlfriend's name is Joy? You know, is that what comes across? How do you associate joy?
You know, it's really interesting, differently than I used to.
Yeah.
The more spiritual work that I do, the more I really do get that joy is our natural state. And I know that's, oh yeah, sure you do, but I do.
Yeah, I call it the default setting.
It is. It really is, because if I'm not throwing up some crap, if I'm not bringing some crap into this situation, my interpretation of things, I am just happy as a pig in its sty.
Doing pig.
Yes. Also, we often talk about the peace that passes understanding. Mm-hmm. Joy is like that. It's like, Oh my God, why am I happy? I don't need, why am I so joyful? I don't need a reason. I just am. So those are the associations.
How about you as a kid or growing up? What was when someone said, joy or joy, when you sang the hymns at Christmas,
No. When you say that, I think joy down in my heart.
Yeah. Right. It's almost exclusively the word joy is almost exclusively almost religious to me.
It is.
It's very rarely outside of.
Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting. People, it's not a word people that use. They use happy or content or.
Yeah, nobody was joyful. it's like wonder or awe, you know. We just don't. We don't live. We don't even, as Western people, we don't even think that like joy is on the offering. Joy is like it's further down the road, or it's a reward at the end, or it's a special occasion. Like you're able to be filled with joy at your wedding, the birth of your kids, but you're not allowed. This said, when we understand the joy in this culture, you're not supposed to be walking around just joyful. People will call you mentally ill.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You can if you don't mind being mentally ill. Yeah.
I know. I have. There has been. Usually, in every job I've been in, there's been some instances where, because I'm a happy person, I'm a really happy person. Normally, it makes somebody at work or whatever, and it hasn't happened yet, so maybe I've gone past this, that doesn't trust me.
Nobody can be that happy all the time.
Right. Yeah, you're fake. You're just a fake it's completely, I don't even believe your setting. I can't even recognize authentic joy or happiness. I'm not even going to consider that the joy would be an authentic way of being. It's it really is
sad, isn't it? It's really sad.
It is to me. It makes me sad, but I have a happy disposition. My mother has a happy disposition. Yolanda is probably one of the few other people I've met that has a really happy disposition. That's just like the way we sort of are, and it makes some people uncomfortable.
Interesting. Yeah, I have heard it said of our program, in fact, that we are way too high energy. You are having way too much fun. It's like, no, it's supposed to be fun.
That's good, though. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I like to laugh. I like to have a good time, and they say that we talked about this yesterday. Yesterday. See how
last week.
Last week we talked about this last week. But like that, gentleness is one of the conditions of learning. And we're learning that so many things, but that learning gets us to an experience of ourselves. And that experience of ourselves is that joy that we just can't explain, and we can't even almost give it away, And
that's beautiful. And I think you hit it right on the head, because the learning that we talk about in A Course in Miracles is the unlearning.
Yes.
Of everything that blocks our natural condition.
They're called blocks to the awareness of the presence of love, which is your natural inheritance. It doesn't say inherit. I always say like it's natural.
As opposed to
natural. As opposed to like constructed. Yeah. Right? Self-constructed. That's the whole thing she says over and over and over again. You keep trying to create yourself, and that has never happened. It's never going to happen. You're located and situated deep into this cooperative web of thoughts that's the mind of God. That's interesting. That's really gorgeous, and I think it's joyful because it means that I don't have to monitor everything. Right? I don't have to worry. Well, I do have to monitor people who park on the sidewalk, but that seems to be my job these days. People behaving in public in very inconsiderate ways. That's simply, I don't know. That seems to be where I am right now, and that'll change when I learn. But I am here for the lesson. I am here to find out where I'm looking past the joy that's right in front of me.
I love the way you said that. Really, looking past the joy that's right in front of me. That's what we do.
That's yeah. And it's so if you can learn it, then you don't have to relearn it. Or if you can unlearn the unhelpful pieces. You don't have to learn the thing that works. The thing that works comes about because we're not doing the thing that blocks it. It's who we are in this flowering and this joy that gets out. We're like, oh, too much joy. Whoa, too much joy. I feel too good. We're looking for the other shoe.
Yeah, that's right.
Really, I just was like, when am I? This is like, I told and this is, I'll stop here because I'm interested in the reading, but I told Yolanda, I said, if this land in Vermont actually goes through, because I've got crap credit, I've been through bankruptcies. Drug addiction and the law. Used to be a sex worker. There's so I've got crap credit. 57, I still have crap credit. So I don't know if they were going to let me have this, land. We were buying land, and I said, I'm not going to put anything. I'm going to go through the thing because I think this is what I'm supposed to do or happen. And what happens is what's supposed to happen. I need to learn, or I need to understand. I need the process or these people. I don't know. I'm just doing it because this is really the clear direction that I'm supposed to go. And I told Yolanda, I said, if we get this land that just dropped in our heads and it was just completely this easy, my attitude about life is going to change. Because I'm going to have not just my own personal inner awakening to look at my own state of peace, my own, maturity, whatever you want to call it, my development, my own presence. But I am demonstrating that this works in all aspects of my life. It's brought me this work has brought me the job I love. This work has brought me the land I love. This work has brought me the love of the relationships that I love. So it's taken care of me in material ways, that I said Yolanda had asked me to change the word, and I generally do, but I said it first. I said, I'm going to be insufferable. If we get this land, I'm just going to be insufferable. And she goes, don't put that out. Don't have in your mind that you're going to be insufferable. It's just, you're going to not be, afraid of what's ahead, that it isn't all good and it isn't moving. You're going to be weird. I'm different. I'm a different person. This May 1st is our first year of owning this 4.5 acres in Vermont, and we're going up, and it's this getting it and changing and doing this work has been so invigorating to me. So that's how the joy gets expressed in my life. There's joy that's happening. There's joy that's flowing out of me into the world. So why don't you take this reading while we have a few minutes left of the program?
Yeah, let's do that. Get to the program format. Let me. Oops, I lost it. Wait 1 second. I gotta pull it up. It's right over your picture. Okay, here we go. So joy, and this is section. You tell here. So maybe I'll just read. I'll just read. You all will find it's under the characteristics of the teachers of God. Joy. It's the fifth characteristic. Here we go. Joy is the inevitable result of gentleness, which is what we just looked at, right? Last week.
Yes.
Yeah. Joy is the inevitable result of gentleness. Gentleness means that fear is now impossible. And what could come to interfere with joy? The open hands of gentleness are always filled. The gentle have no pain. They cannot suffer. Why would they not be joyous? They are sure they are beloved and must be safe. Joy goes with gentleness as surely as grief attends attack. God's teachers trust in him, and they are sure his teacher goes before them, making sure no harm can come to them. They hold his gifts and follow in his way because God's voice directs them in all things. Joy is their song of thanks, and Christ looks down on them in thanks as well. His need of them is just as great as theirs of him. how joyous it is to share the purpose of salvation.
I know. It's almost like a song.
Yeah,
You know,
sweet.
it's like how joy. You know what joy there is. You know,
Joy down in
just
my
share
heart.
the purpose of salvation. You know, I could just hear that in a hymn, or like the preacher on the Sunday morning goes, "What a joy it is to participate in salvation." You know,
I love it.
because I grew up with competitive preaching.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Well, competitive preaching, competitive prayer. I'm sure you understand the concept of competitive prayer. So this idea of that she builds right on it. She starts the thing from the last characteristic. So these aren't standalone things. She's building this necklace almost. She's building this talisman, or this to string to give to us. Is like these are the characteristics. Is like you go to like a video game or like a Mario Brothers, where you get the mushroom or the reward, and it goes the jewel or whatever it is. You know, you get this thing. Goes, I achieved gentleness. You know. So
Now I get to go to the next
I
thing.
get to go to the next one. You know. Yeah. But you have to go through the 6 phases of developing trust in your own self before she even talks to you about anything else. So I want to put the joy in context. Joy is coming after tolerance. Joy comes after gentleness. Joy comes after trust. It is a result. It is the direct result of these principles working in our lives, and it is and we experience it in the way we talk about it, in the way we language it as a human being. We have a feeling. Joy is there's a physical aspect to this that we're actually comparing it to. This is joy, and it's a manifestation of an experience of chemicals or whatever that's being released, or where the expression of that feeling actually has material effects. That thing of joy has material effects in which it changes the world. It changes our chemical makeup, and it changes the world. So I love that. Create the conditions, and you can change the world. You don't have to change. You don't have to know how the world changes. We just have to create the conditions. And like you were saying earlier, and joy is already there. Very clear. It is joyous to share the purpose of salvation. So joy is, and she says, it's inevitable if you're kind. If you do this stuff, joy is inevitable. It's a promise. It means that fear doesn't have the power that it's supposed to have.
Yes.
Joy just like kind of dispels fear, and I've seen that happen in my own life, that being happy or being my normal self around somebody in a very difficult situation is actually freeing for that. It actually gives permission to to be them, to meet you or meet us where we are. That fear goes away because I don't have to manage something anymore. And a lot of what I try to where I get in trouble is trying to manage others, especially manage bodies through space. That's where I get into trouble. And this joy allows me to see past that. Joy goes with gentleness, and she gives us the counteraction: as surely as attack attends to, or grief attends to attack. So if we're doing so, she implies that dealing with our grief will bring about joy. Grief attends attack. When we don't grieve, we attack. And because we don't grieve the loss of our joy, the loss of our expression, the loss of our connection, we think it's somebody did it out there. and we have to manage that in some way. So this connecting she does for me with grief and attack and joy is really quite delicious. So God's teachers trust in Him. That's what the whole, we get here. We get to experience this joy. We get here because of the trust. Fear becomes impossible, and we are beloved. She says we are beloved and safe, and that's a good place to make decisions from. You know, what am I going to do with this person who's behaving in really, really awful ways? You know, who's threatening. You know, how can I see clearly to know how to respond with gentleness and to know what is mine to do, or respond in order to work with the laws of God that are already present, instead of trying to force my will so I don't have to deal with this upset, right? So that's just, there's so much in here. It's one paragraph. She says that the open hands of gentleness are always full. So when we reach out for something, we're given a gift. I says, when I'm always joyful, I always have a gift to give, and I'm always receiving. So I have things that my hand is giving away, that I'm giving away, and I have my hand out to receive as well. It's both of those things. The hand is full. She doesn't say full. She doesn't say it came from one place or it's going one place, because it's both of those things. It's marvelous the way she constructs this. Grief, I mentioned the grief part. God goes before us, making the way safe. Well, of course she does. What's before? I mean, God is before us. That's no truer statement ever in the world. Before us is God. There's nothing before us. Before us is God. You know, before us is God, and that's the trust. Is that a joyous opportunity for us, really, to follow along somebody? Not in this culture. It's not supposed to be a good thing to follow anybody. But she says in one of the other lessons I like is I choose the second place to gain the first. So it's like I win when I don't drive. And she says this in chapter 9. She says, "Why are you so concerned with the plan? You should just do what you're supposed to be doing, and everything will work out. You know, you're trying to understand this whole plan is going to be the problem." So God's voice could be directing us in all things. Directing us where? Towards our joy. What is the joy? The way we particularly experience the feeling of giving and receiving. That giving and that open hand giving and receiving idea. And she says that joy is the song, and I like this. It's joy is the song of I wrote joy is the song of mutual admiration. The song of appreciation. She says the Course of Miracles is, and this is why I sign all my emails this way, in appreciation. You know, like in business, you're supposed to say best wishes or regards or something like that. My email signature, it says in appreciation.
Sweet.
Me. My name and my title and everything like that, because that's the relationship I want to put forward. That's the first thing I'm going to, be about. I'm going to be about appreciation of the life of what's true. And there isn't anybody more true than us or my brother. Joy is a song of mutual admiration. Joy is she implies, is the shared need for each other. Joy is the shared need for each other. Joy is the song of thanks. Christ looks down on them and gives his thanks as well. I'm grateful for you, for this world and life, because I don't get to exist without it any other way. I need cats and rhinos and all kinds of stuff in the world in order for me to exist. I'm not above or below. This is all of one thing. Joy is our shared need for each other, and it could be a celebration. Joy is the sharing of our purpose of salvation. Salvation from what? Our own suffering?
I was
Our
going to say
own
unjoy.
ignorance? What?
Unjoy.
So that's what, that's, I just was like, joy. Yeah. The goal's joy. It isn't, she doesn't say this, but she's speaking directly to what we say is most important in this culture. What the goals of all your learning is. What's the goal of all your learning? To make a good salary, right? Isn't that why you learn anything? In order to
Back it up in the morning.
in order to in order to put those commas in the bank account, She talks directly to that. She goes, no. If you learn properly, the result's joy. It isn't things. The result is an appreciation for where you are and who you are in the community and how you can relieve the material suffering of others. That's joy. That's your joy. So I was really happy to get to joy, because she says sharing. She's just like joy is sharing. Joy is the absence of guilt and attack. So I like joy. She's
I like joy too.
She's great in my, she's like great in my book, and really underlooked, under-examined, and relegated to some highfalutin, rare state or rare occurrence or way of being, or
it's kind of like a unicorn.
Yes, right. Because a lot of people can say they know when they've been the happiest in their whole life. They can tell you the dates and times that they've been their happiest in their life. I really can't do that. Jacquelyn, I mean, there are big events in my life. Everybody has big events. But when was I most happiest? It's always now. It wasn't when my bankruptcy went through. It wasn't when I got the land, although that was very joyous. It wasn't when my ex-husband left me, or I left my ex-husband. It was because I'm,
Well, and that's the thing we were talking about a while ago. It's like the peace that passes understanding. Joy is not the result of some event in the world. I mean, joy is, and that's why you can't point to a period in time, and attach it to some event that was occurring, because it's unattached. It's floating happiness.
Yeah, the overwrought metaphor is we're swimming in it, right?
Yeah.
How'd this so you taking some notes there? How'd that go for you?
I've got to refute that, and I've got to
All right. Good. That's what I do as well. It goes, oh.
She thinks that means that.
I know. Taking notes.
I did take some notes. So let me start with what's on the screen here, which is this passage on joy. And as you pointed out, she states, the very first sentence, joy is the inevitable result of gentleness. And last week we talked about, okay, so what does gentleness mean? What does it mean to be wholly gentle? And again, there we said it means, at least I said, it means to come to oneness with wholly empty hands. Gentleness represents total acceptance and total allowance, right?
Yeah.
And so if you go into every situation without an agenda, without a need for a particular outcome, without any opinions or interpretation, guess what you get? You get joy.
And you get to give away stuff too, that both.
Absolutely. And again, as we said before, it is our natural state. And so all of those needed outcomes, the desires to get rather than to give, all of that self-will blocks our natural state, blocks our natural joy. So as we learn not to be harmful, and of course we talked about, and that's how she starts that passage on gentleness. Let me just scroll up
harm
here.
And attack.
Yeah. Harm is impossible for God's teachers. That's our first sentence of explaining what gentleness is, right? We talked about that as an argument with reality, as an argument, as with what's going on, right? So the opposite of that, the argument with what's going on is gentleness. And when we do that, we naturally find ourselves in the state of joy. We're not interposing anything between us and our happiness. And, that's what we do. We put a middleman between ourselves and happiness. Yeah. And we're like, I'll be happy if this happens. I'll be happy when I get, right? And so we're always once removed from happiness. And again, happiness, like joy, that's natural. So quit putting stuff between. Building those barriers. When this happens, then I get to be. No, it's your natural state. So of course, when you let all things be exactly as they are, your prize is joy. Let's see. Gentleness means that fear is now impossible. What could come to interfere with joy? And of course, fear is what drives us. And you made that point with the bank account, right? What does this society teach us it will bring us joy? The bank account. Again, ego's got it 180 degrees wrong. That is what that is doing, is staving off fear. If I have enough money in my bank account, then I'll no longer be at risk, and then I can be happy. Then I can be joyous. But again, it's interposing that middleman, and it's a complete confusion about the way to drive the bus. The engine's in the back. I know in a few cars it used to be that way, but that's not. It's such a backwards way of looking at cause and effect, right? Looking at our natural condition. Ego says our natural condition is one of doom, gloom, despair, and if I don't do these things, then clearly I'm going to end up in dust, on Skid Row. And that's just a backwards way of looking at everything. And that way of looking drives us to competition, attack, and all of these things that remove our awareness of joy.
That's a political system and a business plan, by the way.
Yeah. And it doesn't work. We spend a lot of time talking, we look at these people when we do our TED Talk program, and we look at something genuine, and we look at these people, and what you find out is, guess what business model actually works? Yeah, it's the one where you just want to make everybody happy. You just want to give everything that you can give.
The most people acquire the experience of happiness or joy, or the product is secondary to the joy or the camaraderie or the whatever the connection, the community. It's been described a million different ways, and it will be. But that's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, I did have something that I was going to take a little issue with. That only a little bit. I'm not taking issue with it at all. I'm just like, that is not how I read that sentence. Joy goes with gentleness as surely as grief attends attack. I appreciate that. I do appreciate, by the way, I appreciate your joy and your enthusiasm for this material always. Always. The way I read this sentence was, like a lawyer might, which is joy is to gentleness as grief is to attack, right?
Yes.
So you participate in it, which is a very, very simple reading of the sentence. So I appreciate what you had to say. You participate in, hey, buddy, get out of my way. Guess what you're going to get? You're going to get grief. That way lies misery. We looked at how self-will always results in suffering. And the way to joy, to peace of mind, to happiness is to give up self-will. And again, we just said that's the business model that succeeds. Yeah, is to give up selfishness, self-will. Yeah, go ahead.
You can, well, the phrase is you can lead a horse to water, right?
And it's the fear that causes people to go, yeah. That's nice in La La Land, but that's not going to work out here on the street.
You aren't living in reality. I hear that isn't, or the whole meme is like, that's not how anything works. But it's like,
the funny thing is, it is.
I'm sorry. It's like we can't look. So that's why I'm an integral person. That's why I like interfaith, because I can pull this principle out and use it in a farming way. I can pull this principle out and use it in a strictly boardroom fashion. I can pull this principle out and use it to create a political structure for a large organization or something like that, or a collection of organizations. I can pull this out and it organizes universal systems. So if it's true, I should be able to pull it out and use it wherever. But that's not how it's done. We're chop up the world.
The truth is true wherever you apply it, and that's exact. And I just loved your your discussion of that. I mean, that's the way it is. I will also point out that the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament says that the world and the creative process that we employ to create the world that we live in is a process that's meant for joy. We are one. We are always in communication with one another. I ask for something, not out loud. I ask for something by the energy that I put out there. You deliver it. It calls it the law of love. But this whole process in Ephesians, in NTI, this whole process is a process that's meant for joy. That's supposed to be the end result.
That's the ecosystem.
So if you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong.
I know.
Right? If you're not experiencing joy, you're doing it wrong.
Jesus said it really well. He said, if the tree doesn't bear fruit, cut it down.
Oh, lovely preacher kid. Yeah.
I know. It's like, if this method doesn't work for you, then stop doing it.
Just stop it.
Just stop it. But it's I try to give people a break, like this woman I'm working with. It's like, you really care. You really want the people I work with. It's very obvious that you want this resolved. This is out of whack for you, and you're asking for somebody to help you unstuck it. I can't unstuck anybody, but it's like, how incredible 3/4 of the way down the path you are if you know that you're not joyful, if you know that the joy thing, if you're like, this isn't joyful, this isn't working, then you have a direction, and then you can reach out, and then you know what to do. It works. If this isn't working for you, then you don't understand.
Yeah, well, and isn't that what resulted in Course in Miracles itself? There's got to be
a better way. Yeah, I know. There's got to be a better way. It's no accident, and we get a lot of suggestions about how to create that better way for ourselves, because she doesn't ever say, the way you get joy, you move to this place on the planet and you do these things and you do these exercises and you cut your hair this way so that everybody knows that you're one of mine. You cut your hair. She never says it. She never says, this is how you do it.
And I really appreciated when you said a moment ago, and this is one of the notes that I took, when you talked about trying to achieve joy by managing bodies in space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just not how it's done, because that's not what we are. I mean, it appears to be. We functionally, we seem to be moving around in these bodies. But again, just as I was speaking about the law of love a moment ago, Course in Miracles says there are no private thoughts. There are no private thoughts. That sounds fantastical, but we're all living off the same organism here. We all are the same organism. How in the world could there be private thoughts? You can't move something over there that doesn't have an effect over here. It's all one thing. And everything that happens causes everything that happens. And once you understand the interrelated nature of things, you see that the work that needs to be done is right here. It's right here. And that's how you bring joy to the world. You find your joy, and then that's what you give to the world.
Oh, I know.
And she says, and I just love it. It's so poetic. The open hands of gentleness are always filled. It's not like you're going to go give this stuff away and, and your hand's going to get bitten, or you're going to do without, or no. Like you said, you give, these hands are come back full. Now, we don't always think that way in spiritual circles, because frankly, we're not focused on getting. But it's true. If you're speaking to the ego's concern always is the fear of loss, always. And hence the bank account equating with joy. So this is like I can't think of the word that's being thrown out to the ego, right? It's like, don't worry. Just because you give everything away, don't think that you're going to do without.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. Yeah. Give and find out what happens.
She's selling joy.
She is selling joy. She's selling joy. And and she does that again somewhere else in here when she's the Lessons of the Holy Spirit, where she says to give all to all. Yeah. So it's like it's really like, little ego, don't be afraid. Just try it and see what happens.
You'll be really happy.
I promise.
I know. That was, when I had my ayahuasca jungle experiences, and I've mentioned this before, but it's useful. When I met my ego, it was in the executive office. It was in my own vision. My ego had the had the big desk, and I had the little desk out front. Because I was the secretary out there, buzzing, goes, oh, is he here to see you?
Is that okay?
I know, is that okay? I had to, with the help of the Holy Spirit, or the mother, or however we want to categorize these things, this technology. I had to go throw the ego out of my desk, out of the executive, commanding functions of my own mind. I had to physically, remove the boss, and that's what more terrifying thing for an American to have to go into the boss's office and say, you're not the boss anymore, I'm the boss. So I try to give myself and others, be gentle, with myself and others, to say, we're living in a world that doesn't do this, that doesn't promote these values. You can't turn on a television and see these values really.
Well, and this is where, and she says this in here. What could come to interfere with joy? Gentleness means that fear is now impossible, and what could come to interfere with joy? So you can see how this, like all of the other characteristics of God's teachers, rest on trust. I know you think the world requires that you scratch and fight for everything, every scrap of whatever that you get. You're going to have to trust me on this. You're going to have to trust that although you're going exactly opposite to the rules of the world, you are going to be safe. You are going to be happy. You are going to be loved.
And the farther along on this, 20 years into this, 20 good years into this, before that, namby-pamby, kind of like lost, looking but lost. You know what I mean? Because I spent a lot of my time trying on a lot of different things. I've tried on drugs, I've tried on sex, I've tried on everything that has ever promised to make me happy or a fulfilled, three-dimensional person that I wanted to be. I've tried everything that offered itself to to put me on the map, so to say, or whatever. I really have. Well,
and we all have, and of course, in Miracles acknowledges that, because gosh, how does it say that? It says it talks about the search for meaning, and it says the people have died upon seeing that all of this is meaningless.
Yes.
And they didn't have to. If they'd just gone one step further, they would have, had they really gone, oh, all this is meaningless, therefore it must be an illusion, it must be the lie. Yeah.
There is another way. I don't know what it is, but there is another way. And even knowing that this doesn't work is, I would say, 3/4 of what the whole learning process is a lot of it. And she says this a lot in the course, is learning what doesn't work, being able to recognize quicker and quicker and quicker the ways in which we are still participating in the laws of the world, which only bring about suffering for ourselves and others.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you have to get a hit over the head to figure out you don't want to get a hit over the head anymore?
As many as it takes to not want to get hit, to not believe the person that says you're a good person for taking those blows.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, because one of the people, the gal I work with, it's just, I'm a good person because I sacrifice so much, because I do so much for other people's, and I'm so busy, and I do so much for others. She's very. Well,
the course talks about.
I'm a good person because of that, and I'm not getting.
The course talks about carrying the cross, she
calls that the last useless journey.
That's it.
You make that the last useless journey. You're trying to be a good person,
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult mind habit not to pop out of. I'm not, or was for me. It could be easy, but that's where that like joy is infectious. Like communities that have this default setting and have reached this maturity state where most people are kind of moving in and out of this bubbling joy pot. This people are bubbling in this lovely thing. So you get there, and when you're kind of sink down or you lose your mind, you're in the community. It's it's contagious.
I can choose again. I can see that it's my choice, and I'm choosing something other than joy.
Yeah. We actually are a lot better at this, and then again, it goes back to those 6 stages of trust, developing trust for what works instead of believing a promise that has never worked. Because she talks to this promise all the time. You're here because you aren't feeling good. I know you're not here because you're not feeling good. You're not feeling good because you don't know who you are, and who you even think that you want to be is wrong.
Well, yeah, and again, it's that mistaken premise, and we often talk about it in terms of separation. But the mistaken premise is, I'm not safe. And ego goes, come here, I'll help. I'll make you safe.
Yeah.
And it's a lie. And we fall for the lie. It's Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown, right? We fall for it over and over and over and over again. And so we, very often those folks who find themselves on this path have suffered some kind of tragedy where they go, I've tried it all, buddy. I have tried it. I've hit bottom, as they say in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's nowhere to go that I can take myself, because I've tried that. I've tried it. And again, and I've not done the 12 steps, but my understanding is you get, okay, I can't do it. I've got to turn this over to something beyond of me.
Mm-hmm. The trust and the 12 steps is the first step is I'm powerless.
Yes, there you go.
Over my addiction, or for me, it's I'm powerless to change the world, because I don't want to change the world. I want us to change the world. But to move that little bit from wanting to have my way to wanting to participate in a solution, a grand solution to suffering or whatever we're going to talk about in a larger way, that cooperative deciding to work with what is one, what is whole, and what is true in this community that is this churning with joy and creativity and abundance? Absolutely. But I don't really, I only know what that looks like today. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know how to outpicture that. All I can do is like what my dad said, be about attending your side of the road. Because you're just way too busy attending other people's side, other people's side of the road. It's you need to spend a little bit more time maintaining your side of the road, son.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Still hear my dad said, because I've I was raised pretty. I'm pretty blessed with a decent family, but my the joy, I grew up. The joy wasn't far. It wasn't unusual. We were a pretty happy family. And I know that a lot of people, joy is a very frightening concept. It's a standard to live up to that they feel like they never are going to. I have friends that are depressed a lot. Yes.
Sorry, I popped out for a minute, came back.
So depression is a real thing,
Well, and it's a fairy tale. I mean, because we're listening to the voice that says that's not how things work. You're never going to find joy. You better just watch that bank account. Watch your step. Make sure that guy doesn't get you. I mean, it's just really just starting from so backwards. I mean, how would you know until grace shines a light on the truth, until the Course in Miracles book falls off the shelf and hits you in the head, till you stumble into an AA meeting, until grace brings the truth into your life. Because hello, what'd you say? Hopeless and closed learning center.
Hopeless and closed learning center. Learning opportunity. Hopeless and closed learning situation.
Yeah.
How may I help you?
until grace brings that, shines that little bit of light into your life. You don't have any choice. I mean, you really believe this is the way things work.
You can, and I couldn't be talked out of it either. Do you remember what kind of switched? What switched for you when joy became not something that was real and positive and attainable in mind, rather than lofty out there and occasional?
Gosh, no. Do you? I'm gonna have to give that
really, only for a couple of years now. About 2004, 2005, when I had a really big awakening, my whole life flipped over. Just had this huge awakening, and I had this thought that I'm not going to wait anymore. I was done, anticipating. I was done, trying, or the efforting, that dropped away, and it was not only do I want to be me, it's important that I'm me. You're everybody here is important. I want to know your joy. I want to know how this joy happens for you. I want to see and participate in that, But thank you for participating, everybody, in our lovely discussion on joy. It's a joy to be here. It's a joy to be here.
It really is. Yes, very joyful. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next week.
We will.
You've been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.
I can see peace instead